Welcome to CATtheMinion YouTube channel. My name is Teresa, but you can call me Cat. I'm doing an energy report. I don't know why I'm so nervous about doing this. It's kind of frustrating and baffling me, but the energy report I want to do today is about the perception of time in relation to what people describe as past lives. And I'm actually getting a download already. Hopefully I'm just going to write a note so I don't forget about that. So, the way that we experience time on Earth, it has a direction. We move from the past to the present, and then we're going to move into the future. So, when we exist, apparently my little person has the captain in them and they have a leg up. When we exist in the present, we sometimes remember past lives, what we think of as past lives. I know this is kind of boring to wait for me to draw another little picture, but hold on for a second. These are the stupidest stick figures ever. I love this. Okay, so we have past lives. So here's a dinosaur and a Greek lady. This is the most magnificent drawing I've ever made. Okay. So we experience past lives. These are just two samples, right? We remember, it's like, I remember what it was like to be amongst the dinosaurs. Or I remember, I'm like super obsessed with this culture and I don't know why. I feel like I keep remembering stuff. But what some people might actually pick up on is that some of our past lives are actually future lives. I'm trying to draw something that looks semi-futuristic here. Hold on. It's like a hoverboard. Some of the lives that we pick up on are actually future lives from our standpoint of time in the 3D world. But what's actually happening... Let me try to do this again here. I know this is kind of boring, but I didn't want to draw the stick figures ahead of time because I wanted it to be kind of a gradual progression. Let's draw the same character. Okay, so here you are in your frame of reference. This is your world as you experience it. But what's really going on is that all time is now. Every single point in time in the history of everything is happening right now, and we only perceive it because we're locked into a space-time continuum. So if something happens in 4000 BC, if something happens in 4200 AD, if something happens 50 years ago, if something happens in 1437, if something happens in 10 years, we experience it as happening this was a long time ago. And we call it far in the past. But why are we using distance for time, right? In the near future, in the near past, in the far distant future, right? Space and time from the 3D world are intimately connected. And you'll see this in a second when I finish this drawing here. But I'm also, the circles on here too. I'm also trying to illustrate that things that are far distant from us but happening now are also distant. Like this guy down here. Right? So from our frame of reference, things that are distant spatially and distant time-wise are basically identical. Everything's happening all at once. And people just have described the universe as being populated by a single entity, right? We are the only soul in this universe, and we come back hundreds of millions of billions of times to be every single thing ever in the entire universe. And I don't actually agree with that. I think, actually, I'm going to use a different piece of paper. Using up the cardstock here. I don't actually agree with that. I think, what color? No. Alright. Ew, this is the dusty one. That's the dusty one. Okay. Where was I at? Oh, okay. So, I don't agree with us being every single person in the universe. I think it's technically true, but only on a technicality. There's a driving consciousness that is pervasive in the universe that's kind of like what it's made out of, right? So if I were to say this really crappy drawing of a light bulb is the consciousness of the universe, then it can be divided into parts. Actually, let me do this. Why is there two arrows there? So here's the shiny part over here. Here's the metal twisty part. There's the filament in there, and that's the shell. Right? It's being subdivided. So, and in that way, it's kind of like when stem cells differentiate. And I can separate this even further. But the way that the universe works, everything's actually a fractal. Where the part ends up repeating on itself at some point eventually. But this is what happens. Consciousness keeps splitting in order to gain different perspectives. So here we have the shiny bit, right? This might be light and this might be dark. And here we have the twisty bits. and it's splitting into little fractals of smaller little twisty bits. The same thing with the filament and with the bulb over here. There's a set of fractals that you can look at. It's called Mandelbrot, and even coastlines are fractals. But the point that I'm trying to make is that while we might technically be part of the same all-consuming consciousness, that there's a differentiation when it gets broken down into smaller and smaller bits. Just get this real quick here, hold on. Oh, did I do that? No, I didn't do that wrong, I just made it sloppy. Hold on a second. Just trying to not get confused because this part's upside down from the rest. So this is a fractal. Alright, let's start out with a single, with the consciousness of the universe, and break it down into smaller pieces. Now this one is one of those infinite within the finite kind of fractals. There's others that kind of sprawl out. But the point is that these little tiny triangles coming off of the universal consciousness are what we would experience as, this is me, this is my soul. And the medium-sized ones could be, this is my soul group. So in that way, I try and think of it in terms of stem cells. Right. So the group would be the whole person, and these individual souls, it would be like, here's the lungs, here's a foot, and here's your head. There's a splitting and a specialization of consciousness within the universe. And I want to draw a different way because I want it to be a little bit more understandable. Right? Kind of a hand. Kind of another hand. And this is the way the universe breaks down so that the consciousness can maintain individual perspectives. And let me just draw this again a little bit. Give me 1 second. This is slightly boring to sit here and watch me draw, but we'll get it. And, okay. Okay. So when I was talking about the reality of the universe is that all these things are happening at the same time. They're bits and fragments of the universal consciousness, in the same way that these individual fingers here would be each those same things, right? Almost backwards when I do this, right? So we have the pinky is the dinosaur, and then the ring finger is the Greek lady, and then here's you right now is the middle finger, which I didn't do on purpose. And here's the hovercraft guy from the future, and then here's the alien guy. He's the thumb. He sticks out like a sore thumb. So that's the way that consciousness breaks down into like an individual avatar. So we might, like, the whole hand might be our, like, this is us, and then we experience for our soul in particularly each of those lives, whether it's happening now at a distance or time-wise at a distance. But the reality is that they're all happening right now. And when we experience things that we say are from a different time, these ones over here, or the way we experience it from our meat world perspective, the future is happening now, the past is happening now. But if we're remembering it, then we're actually jacking into the frequency. And I'll show you how that looks. I think my dinosaur looks a little bit more like Yoshi than like an actual dinosaur. Oh, this is cool too because it shows the underlying structure of the universe as well. Okay. So when we remember a past life, we're getting this overlap, sort of like a dimensional overlap, a universal overlap. There's like a portal that opens between the two lives. And maybe this dinosaur has a sense of you because you're the same soul. But if you, like for me, like when I was little, I was obsessed. I wanted to be a paleontologist. It kind of, and a lot of people's past lives sort of disappear by the time they're maybe 8 or so. I think a lot of it some of it has to do with solidifying the physical structure of the brain, and some of it has to do with indoctrination in school, because most people by the time they're 8, they've been to maybe preschool, probably kindergarten, and then at least 1st, 2nd, and maybe part of 3rd grade, depending on how old you are when you start. So the socializing and indoctrination excuse me, into the physical world kind of can break down your connection to other dimensions. But you might find that you're like irretrievably, inexplicably obsessed with things, right? You might be obsessed with aliens. You might be obsessed with ancient Egypt. You might be obsessed with like Spanish-American War era. You might be obsessed with Bali. You might be obsessed with Atlantis, or like the Aztec or Chinese culture or anything like that. And there's, if you're sensing one of those other lives, usually there's some information, right? When you have this portal open, there's a feedback loop, right? If you can see them, they can see you, kind of a thing. And in that way, what you do in your life, let me make another, ooh, I just got an amazing idea. I'll put this up here. Oh, I feel smart. Right? So your life is influencing, for example, the alien that's 4 light years away distance right now, and the dinosaur that's 70 million years at distance time-wise. And they're having an influence on you, right? If this alien is working on gravity technology, you might suddenly become interested in gravity technology and look it up online. And be like, have a sudden download or a dream about it. And the same goes for these too, right? I mean, the dinosaur might not be able to articulate what they're seeing, and it might not filter in to their survival mode brain, but we don't know. We can't really say because the animals haven't really left us any text or artifacts to describe what they experience. In terms of animal consciousness, though, I'm not. There might be some overlap with furries, but we'll see. This is the crappiest drawing of a whale ever. I think I need to rectify that. Hold on. They have. Oh, they do have fins, don't in the back, don't they? The tail would be wider. Okay. That's only slightly less worse than what's in the bubble. So we have these different animal consciousnesses, right? There's a cat nearby that you live with. There's whales that you know are having some kind of discussion out there in the ocean. Cats are actually sort of in between worlds, they say. They can see things that we can't, like interdimensional beings. But what's happening is that when we remember past lives, we are experiencing this overlap here in this Venn diagram part in the middle. Not to, just ignore the animals for a minute. But we experience this overlap here. Now notice the way that I've drawn this. It's the first the Vesica Piscis, and then the second step in drawing the Flower of Life, which turns into Metatron's cube, which expands into the geometry that's the background architecture of the universe. So the fact that there's overlap in these spheres of reference is sort of natural. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it sort of doesn't really do any. It kind of defeats the purpose if you focus on the broadest spectrum and say, I am everything in the universe, I'm them, I'm them, I'm them. Because what we're supposed to learn is actually and give back to the feedback of the universe as a whole, right? Like our lives are kind of a minute by minute report back to the universe itself. There's like infinite wormholes. We're like on the heads, like on the little spy earpiece back to the universe, telling them what we're doing, and they're logging all the information into the data center here in the middle, right? So we're just kind of living our best lives. And all that data goes back into the universe via this sort of wormhole pattern that's just sort of the fabric that's there for every single finger of the finger of the finger, down to the smallest bits of that. It goes back into the whole. So it's sort of like sometimes if you feel crappy or if you have a dream that you're dying, it might have some, it might be an effect from one of these other things. And it's like when we do break through that veil into the other lives that are we perceive as past, or some of them are future, some of them are happening now but at a distance. When we perceive these lives that are usually away from us, there's at least sort of like an astral dimension breakdown of the veil, and there we get into that overlap. And in theory, we should have millions or at least hundreds of lives that we're attached to, that are part of our little hand group of the whole universe. Right? We are like we're related to all, like if you're gonna say that like you're part of the body, it might not be the hands, it's like, okay, so my soul group is the blood cells. So, but I can only get information from the blood cells that are, I mean, it's technically a loop, but let me just draw a circle. Okay. Just pretend that in your blood circulation system, like, is a circle. It's constantly recombining and moving and flowing through the body. But just pretend for a second that, there we go, such a hard time doing this mirrored. You're a single blood cell in here, but you can only communicate with these cells here, and maybe this one down here. But all of your lives are this whole system. So why can you only remember these ones and this guy down here? It's because there isn't any information that's pertinent to what you need right now. Right? So you could have 12 lives down here. Just draw like a... Okay. Right? Here you're like a sentient robot, your soul is jammed in there. Let's just pretend. And here you're a long-eared, long-skulled person that archaeologists like to pretend don't exist. But you don't remember these lives. This is a future one, this is a past life. These are these cells over here that you have no contact with, like in the other part of the loop. So even if this is your same soul across multiple universes, because we're multi-dimensional beings jammed into a pinpoint of experience, you don't remember these because they have no information for what you're doing right now. It's like a null set of data. So this is what I'm trying to express with this energy report. Now, there's book that I read when I was in 5th grade. It's called Stonewards, A Ghost Story. There's this girl, she's living in this house, and she ends up talking to this ghost who's about her age. And it ends up that the ghost died in a house fire in the house. Spoiler alert, sorry, I should have warned about that. But the girl herself ends up almost dying in the house because she's trying to help the ghost move on, but she ends up trapped back in that time in the stairwell with the girl from the 1800s. So in that way you can see that the veil can open and close. And when I said, oh, I've got to download, when I started this, it was suddenly occurred to me that the girl from the 1800s, that was the ghost, it's your past life. And sort of going through it again was somehow clearing it or recording information in some way that was useful for her life now. Or maybe the past life version as a ghost was distressed, and in order for that to have resolution in that soul, they had to appeal to you in this life. So that's one example. I don't know if I need to expand on this or if that was very clear from my crappy little drawings that I did in the middle of talking. But I did get kind of spirit slapped into doing an energy report about the past lives. So again, when I say, if I ever say past life in a reading, it is a shorthand for other versions of you in the universe at some distance where the veil is thin enough for you to contact them that have bearing on your life right now. So past life, not really in the past. Everything, every single time in the universe is happening now, but because of the limitations of the human brain and the physical world, we experience time linearly. Okay. I think that's it. I'm not doing any tarot in this reading. So if you want to get a tarot reading, I have a complete list of readings in the description box of my infomercial video, which is linked below this one. It's a guide and tutorial to what I have available and how to find it. Okay, so that infomercial video linked below this one. You can also get the information about readings that I offer and how much they cost by emailing me, thecatcamebackatcamp@gmail.com. With that same information, I'll also have the link to my catalog. It has actual art items in it, like drawings, a limited amount at a time though. I also have a list of made-to-order items. That's most of the catalog right now. I also have chapbook packs in there. It's like, you know, some of the drawings are kind of like this, some of them are a lot better. It's just little images and poetry samples to help stimulate synchronicities and stuff like that. So chapbook packs are in here, and I have coloring books and merch and prints. A lot of it's psychedelic. There's a couple of fashions just jammed right in there, like little marshmallow morsels. Check out my playlists. I do have more energy reports. I have a bunch of different tarot stuff. I have some art stuff. I have my doll stuff. If you want to donate to this channel, Energy Exchange, you can hit that tip jar, paypal.me/CATtheMinion. I also have Cash App and Venmo. Those are both CATtheMinion as well. I would encourage you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and do check out that playlist tab and the discussion tab for more information as well. Alright, stay groovy. We'll see you later. Bye.